Alright, how's it going everybody? It's been a little while since we made a video. We've been a little bit busy getting the summer break going, had a little family vacation, right? So today we actually have something kind of cool and a little bit different from many of the things that we've been working on. A little AI module robot kit. The company's name is WhalesBot. They sent us the 1S kit. So you can see there's a Tyrannosaurus Rex that we can build. And then there's also a robot named Duke. And it is basically all the instructions are in an app. So we looked at the app and we kind of studied it a little bit before we got started. Because when Dad opened up the box, I didn't actually see an instruction booklet. And I was like, uh-oh, what's going on? So we figured out that there was an app. So we're going to look inside the box and see what we have. I actually really like the box. The box is super nice. Even if we're finished with this, we'll have a nice little storage container for other things. There wasn't any instructions, but there's a quick start guide. It pretty much shows you how to install the batteries and turning things on and off, a basic parts list. So this is basically a kit that is pretty much set up for educational purposes. There's programming software in the app and everything else. So it looks like this guy, we were already a little rough with it. There's a nice little tray so we can organize the parts that we need. It looks like there's plenty of parts in here. I think we're going to pick Duke because we don't want to build something simple and then we can't get it apart because we need parts. We're going to start out with Duke. I think Duke's going to be really cool. There's a bunch of different peel and stick stickers. I'm not really sure what that is. This looks like it's one of the faces. This looks like a power pack, and then it has a bunch of connectors for different wires.
There's also a controller.
Yeah, it's also a controller, yep. Wheels, tons of parts in here, little motors. So a lot of this is stuff that, there's our cables, power cables, and communication cables. Looks like that's just some decorative panels and stuff like that. Pretty similar to a lot of popular building methods, building kits, is how this is going to go together. Various drives and gears, things like that. So we're just going to look at everything. There's some wheels. For one of the simpler kits, I did see you could just use regular wheels. These look like these are tracks, so there's actually a track kit. Duke has little tracks that he's going to ride on. So we're going to have to figure out how to put the tracks together. A whole bunch of connectors, axles. There's a lot of stuff in here. So I think what we're going to do, we're going to put all this back in here for now. And they give us that tray. So in Duke's instruction manual, he actually has a parts list of what you're going to need to build Duke. So I think what we're going to do is find all the parts first and organize it in the tray. But we're going to show you guys kind of how the app works. Does that sound cool? Yeah, that's gonna... Okay, so this is kind of how the app works. And we're going to pick Duke. There's a lot of options in here. As you can see, there's a Tyrannosaurus. We're not going to download those because I don't want the app to crash or anything. We're just going to work on Duke, but there's some simpler ones. There's Warrior. So it wants me to download everything. There's a Penguin. There's a Carrier, Explorer. It's kind of neat. There's a lot of projects that you can build out of this kit. Now there's variations of this kit. We picked the 1S because we didn't really know what we wanted. But once we saw it, we're like, okay, Duke is cool because I think he's got tracks and then he's got little eyes that'll show emotion and everything else. Okay, so there's our construction manual. So 1 of 74. So there's a lot of steps. This may take, I don't know, a few hours. It may take 8 hours. I don't know. We haven't really built one of these before, but we do a lot of things that have this amount of steps. And a lot of times we can get it done in a day, but we're going to see how Duke goes. Why don't you go ahead and scroll the page, buddy. Okay, so that actually shows us our parts list, and we'll be able to expand this. Kind of like popular building kits, it shows you how many pieces you're going to need. And then when you go to the next page, that's kind of how the pieces work. Everything is metric like most of the world, just not the United States. So that kind of is an identifier for a lot of the major pieces you're going to need. And that is going to be step 1. And then on each step, it tells you how many pieces that you need. So I think we're going to go ahead and just scroll right through there, buddy. We'll just keep going. And there's the track modules. Okay. Yeah, that's where the tracks are going to sit. So it's actually really nice. Dad still likes paper instructions, but I understand. I'm kind of a dinosaur, and the world is getting away from paper. I was a little shocked not seeing a paper book. Look at that track system. It looks pretty neat. So I think we can do this. It looks simple enough. Because you're 8 years old, right, buddy?
Yep.
Everything that we're seeing doesn't look incredibly intimidating, right? Looks like something we can handle.
Yep.
Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and we'll organize our parts. We'll take a little time preparing. And just keep on going. That's step 56. So pretty much every step. So like 117. It shows everything kind of like finished. Shows you how to connect your sensor ports and wires and stuff like that. Ooh, there's infrared sensors. There's a lot going on in there. There's his eyes. There's an expression screen. There's a little electrical schematic. Pretty neat. That's 73. What does 74 look like? Yeah, and then that's pretty much tells you how we're going to finish. Dad's eyes are pretty terrible, so luckily I can expand it. We do have a phone to back up and put this on, but touch switch sensor with yeah, so that's pretty cool. Left motor connects to port A, so it actually shows you which ports to connect everything to. All right, so what do you think? Are you excited? Yeah, you're pretty excited. All right, this is a big project. I think we're going to have some fun with this one. So let's spend a little time organizing our parts, and then we're going to get building. Okay, so we spent a little bit of time going over our parts list, and we started organizing everything in a fashion where it made sense to us. We realized some parts we just had extras, so we just threw them all in there. We organized our axles by length in one of the pieces in the kit. There's our controller, facial expression, sensors, facial expression screens. There's our tracks, our wheels, our cables. There's the face decoration, and that's all the panels for the body. We decided to leave that bagged up because we were going to start separating them, but I can only blow this up so big, and I can't really tell too well, you know, what the parts actually look like on the screen. It's a little difficult. I mean, that's obvious what that is, but it's a little hard to tell what everything is. So we're just going to keep on going. Are you ready, buddy?
Yep.
First step, we're going to go ahead and start with one of those. I'll see, now that's confusing already because there are no gray angle pieces anywhere on the list. How many holes you got there? We're going to figure it out.
7.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. One of those, and then you need 3 of these. And then your blue part, how many holes you got there? A 4?
5.
That's a 5. Okay, so we got our 5 right there. Yeah, and I'm already confused there because I didn't see any gray pieces at all. Gray angles. We have these. Maybe this is it. Maybe they're just differentiating the piece. So that's a 3x5 there. Is that what that is? Yeah, because it's not gray. So is that what it is? 3x5?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so that's what it is. I think they were just differentiating. They were differentiating the piece by shading it gray. At least I hope so, because we have no gray pieces like that at all, which is going to make things really interesting. All right, that's the joy of building. All right, so let's start paying attention here. You got to pay attention to how our piece is because things are kind of angled a certain way, right? So go ahead and figure out how to get those pins in. And we're going to start building. This is going to be a while, I think. It's going to take us a little while. Okay, that's good. So we got that little crown gear on that motor. Okay, this is where we're at now. We're on like 6 of 74. So we could blow this up, buddy, so we can see it a little bit on our tablet. So we just got to pay attention to the orientation of how all this goes together. Okay. Yep. I think we got to make sure that they're fully on there. What's nice is that they do come apart, so that tells us that we will be able to disassemble this carefully. Yeah, so if you want, maybe just put those on first, yeah, and then slide it on there. Yeah, you just got to analyze the things a little bit, you know? Just like a lot of things in the real world, the instructions are never 100% clear. Okay, so that's on there. Not really sure what that does, but everything is together. Okay, so we're on to step 10 here. Previous steps, all of this stuff seems very, very loose. But this particular part that we just made in step 9 kind of locks everything together. Just gotta take your time, buddy. Make sure you get that front axle in too. Okay. There you go. And that kind of helps lock everything in place. Now, it doesn't look like any of that's going to come apart now, right? Yep. So we all look pretty good. Okay. Previous steps lock that in place. As you're building this, it does feel like it wants to come apart. But now that we're on to step 10, everything looks proper. Okay. We'll carry on. Put that on the motor. Okay. Then you're going to put your crown gear on. Alright. So that's that. Yep. And then that's just going to line up in there, and then all our next steps. This part always seems like nothing ever is looking proper, but once you actually follow the steps, everything locks in. Okay, so then you need a couple of those, and then 4 more of those guys. And then that will lock this guy into there. Right? So what is that? 2 3s? Is that what those are? So we'll get 2 3s.
Oh, so now this thing is steady.
Yeah.
Now this thing is loose.
Yeah, I think that both sides are made a little bit differently. Okay. Alright. So you're going to put those together. And then you're going to snap them all into that. And then eventually it's going to look like that. Okay, so now we're at a point where we're connecting our 2 tracks together. We just got to line everything up, the left and right side. Think you can handle it? Sometimes it's a little cumbersome. Okay, and then we just got to get that bottom lined up. Looks like you're getting it, buddy. It's just a little tough. This one here, I don't want to force it too much. Okay. We'll try and mess with it a little bit, and we will get it. Alright, I think we're lined up now a little bit. There we go. And then just pull it all together. And I think you got to pull in that a little bit right there. Okay. So it looks like we survived. That's a big wide stance on this robot. So it looks like we survived all that. I think that's actually the most difficult part of this guy, because there's another guy that is similar to him, another model, but the steps were much shorter. I think that this is the most difficult part, which I think, I don't know, 2-3 hours this took us, something like that. So I think we're doing okay. We'll keep on going. Okay, so our tablet died. So it looks like per side, we're going to have to assemble 30 tracks. So I started clicking them together. This is what we have so far. And then we have our communication cables plugged in. And then we have these guys, which are kind of structural, but they're also decorative. And we'll start snapping our tracks together. It's probably going to take a little bit of time, so we'll work on that.
30 tracks?
Okay, so we switched to an old phone, and the app is on there. So Dad got the tracks on one side. I'm not sure if you are going to be able to do it, but the way I did it, buddy, is I laid the tracks flat like this, and I set the bot on the tracks like that, and it does kind of just line up pretty good. You just make sure it's lined up. I think we got to watch this cable. It didn't tell us where to put that cable. Okay, and then you just roll it over, and then you're going to have to roll the other side up, and you're going to have to pinch them together. I'm not sure if you're going to have quite enough strength to do that. If you go ahead and you get it hooked, use both hands, buddy. Yeah, I think that's a little tough task for a young child, but it is doable. Dad did it. A little tough? Okay, that's fine. Just kind of curl it. There we go. A little snapping sound. Now one motor's turning and one motor's not, so I'm going to kind of have a look at that and try to figure out what exactly is going on with that, because it kind of doesn't make sense how one motor turns. Yeah, I guess it does now. Just one a little tighter than the other. Okay, so now we're on to this other motor and the gear assembly. We were completely out of these orange 7s, so we had some whites and we used that. There was a couple spots where there were some discrepancies in the instructions, so we had to do a little bit of interpretation. Careful with that, okay?
Which is the 73 and the 74 beat?
That's just the actual step, 73, 74. We're on page 40. That's step 73, 74. Just because there's been like 2 steps on. So that's a step we actually check ourselves on. All right, does that look pretty good? Okay, that looks good. The motors do seem hard to turn. One motor seems like it's easy to turn, but I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how everything turns when it runs. Okay, next step. Alright, so now...
Wait, this needs to be key.
Yeah, alright, we're trying to line up the what appears to be the torso with the base. He's just taking a little bit of time lining it up. It's got to be keyed a certain way.
It's gonna be like a plus sign right now. It's like an X.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Alright, well, let's just take it back. See if we can turn that. Okay. It's just not wanting to roll. There we go. We got it. Okay. So we're together. Not sure what's going on with those. We'll figure it out. So I don't know if this is right. The instructions was showing this to be white, but I couldn't find these pieces in white, so I kind of spent a lot of time, and then I was like, well, I'll just use the blue ones. So that's where we're at right now. Okay, moving on. Everything looks pretty decent. Looks good. You 50?
Yeah.
These were 50s. Okay, so we have batteries in our controller, power pack. That's a chest piece. So it doesn't show incredibly clearly. Maybe that control pack just kind of sits in there on its own. And then eventually we'll hook up all of the communication wires. We finished Duke. He's all finished. We got all our ports cut in. He was a little bit tough to build. I actually think for a lot of parents, this would be a hard one to help your kids with. But he's pretty good. Can you do... Oh, there you go. There's his eyes. He's saying hello. Nice. And through the app, you can control his movements. That's just with the remote control feature. So he's pretty cool. And he's controlled by Bluetooth with your mobile device. Nice. Can you show me some of his other emotions? Some heartbeats. It's like the hearts are upside down, actually. But you know what? There was one thing in the instructions. There were some things that weren't clear, like which way to actually put the screens in. And sometimes some of the things around his hands were kind of hard. When we first fired him up, some of this stuff was binding, and it wasn't turning very well with the gears. And I think you have to be pretty gentle with him. You know, you can't be rough with him at all. Because even these axles, they tend to want to come apart a little bit. I even added one support in there because it seemed like his tracks wanted to spread a little bit. But Duke is a really nice module by WhalesBot. So it is actually a really great thing. Do you like this thing? Tell me everything you think about it. You're happy? Yeah, so you're happy. it was a fun experience. It actually took us probably about 6 or 7 hours. We did a lot of fumbling around. When I was putting things together, his chest kept wanting to fall apart, so it was kind of difficult. I can see a lot of this stuff coming apart easily if you're not careful with him. But then there's also, right now, he's just controlling it manually. We'll look at some of that stuff on the app. There is a tilt sensation thing, but it seems like we don't have a lot of control over the, so if you tilt the device, he moves, which we didn't like that. So we'll just kind of turn him this way. And as you can see, that's the joystick, right? And there's some speed there. And if you control it slowly, it is very responsive. So it is very responsive. And then if we do hello, he says hello. And he kind of moves a little bit. His arms and his head move. Nice. Welcome. Yeah. So this is Duke. That's just one of the options. I suppose to get used to this, we could have built one of the simpler models, but we had to challenge ourselves right away. We're pretty happy with it though. And then we can go back to the coding screen where we could actually basically give him different commands. We can go there. And you can actually write forward, backward. You can have him do sounds, his eyes will light up, stuff like that. And then he will do the commands that you want to do. So that'll turn on his eyes right away to what you want. You can do different eyes.
Here's the actual heart.
Yeah, the hearts are actually upside down, but that's because the screens are in upside down. Which was kind of, I thought I followed the manual closely, but apparently I have to flip them. But you know what? I think it works out pretty good. Maybe we'll flip them if we feel like it. You could do squares for eyes. And then if you press the play icon, that'll change his eyes. This play icon. See? And that changes his eyes. Just for a second. You know, it doesn't actually hold because that's the end. But if you were to add a bunch of motions in there, you know, forward, backwards, we have to kind of experiment a little bit. There's different sounds it'll do. So we could actually turn on some sounds. I think there was a different, oh, we were using the tablet and it died.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, see, there's different things he'll say. Yeah, so we can just press that. Then we can make him go forward. Yeah. And then there's also a way to mess with his sensors where he'll keep doing something until you touch his sensor. And then there's an infrared sensor, which we'll have to mess with a little bit. But overall, I think it is actually a really nice thing. It's just something you really definitely got to take care of. He's got a younger sister, so I would keep that away from her, right? Yeah, definitely going to keep that away from her. See, he's kind of starting to experiment and figure out. There you go. You just gave it some commands, forward, backward. And then you can also do directions, time directions, I believe. So you can actually do like forward for 1 second, backward for a second. So you just have to mess with it. Oh, that'll actually give you a longer time. Yeah, so you can actually do 3 seconds. Gotta be careful because we're on a table. You don't want to have them go flying off the table, right? That's okay. Dad'll stand over here, and then you can play your program, and I'll make sure he doesn't come flying off the table. When you're doing that programming, I think it's best to do it on the floor, right? But there's his power supply, and there's the motor ports.
But if you do it,
There's the sensing ports.
But if you do it on the floor, I rather wouldn't do it on a hairy surface over here because it makes it
Yeah, just make sure you don't get dog hairs and stuff like that in there. Okay. Pretty cool. So you could probably write a pretty long program and make him put on like a whole show for you. Do you like to do it on the floor and just make a really long one? Yeah, that's fine. Well, you probably gave him a few seconds to play. Yeah, so one thing I would check frequently is the axles. You can see like it starts moving around a bit. Just the weight of this guy is pretty heavy. So I would make sure everything is pretty seated each time you play with it. This is definitely something you put up high on your shelf when your sister's in your room, right, buddy?
Yep.
Yeah. You can see it's all pretty good. Just a little bit of a challenge. I think he's about 8 years old, so I think he's at an age where he really appreciates this kind of thing. I think between the ages of 8 and 13, probably pretty good. But I think, again, the average parent would have a little bit of trouble working this thing, putting it together. It was a little challenging. Alright, so you wrote just a little bit of code how the sensor works, the touch sensor, right? You want to play that for me? And then that way when you touch his sensor, he says hello, and his eyes do a whole bunch of stuff. So that's pretty cool. You just kind of wrote a real basic code. I like it. Nice. I think you can have hours and hours of enjoyment with this thing. Excellent. What do you think, man? Is that a thumbs up or no? All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for visiting our channel. This is the WhalesBot AI module. This is Duke.
Where he started.
Nice.
I tried to make it Edward. He started. That's not funny.